Hey everyone,
I'm Brenda.
and I'm Julia, and you're listening to Roaring Twenties Podcast.
Your 20s are known as both the most exciting and most confusing years of your life. We're here to share our stories, to have real and raw conversations, and best of all, to make you feel a little less alone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Roaring Twenties Podcast. Today we have on with us Ashika and Sydney from the Skin Deep team. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this interview. With an Emmy award-winning documentary, the And card games, and multiple immersive projects, the Skin Deep team is in pursuit of documenting human connection with a mission to create the world's first database of human emotion. I was just telling Ashika and Sydney that when I found them on Instagram, I was in a rabbit hole watching all of like the little film clips that they put up. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So before we get into all of the deep stuff about the Skin Deep and the end games and vulnerability and connection, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about you as a person, who you are, where you're from, and how you got involved in the Skin Deep and what your roles are there.
Cool. So you want to go for it while you have your internet?
Sure. Okay, so I'm Sydney Laws. I am a generally creative person from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Decatur. So if there's anyone out there from Atlanta, Decatur where it's greater is what we say. I have been working at TSD for going on 2 years, but that rabbit hole that you talked about was exactly how I ended up at TSD. It was back in March of 2020 when the pandemic first hit, and I'm not someone who's really big on YouTube content, but somehow I ended up on YouTube, and then I saw one video, and then 2 hours later I realized like, oh wow, I've been watching this for a very unnerving amount of time. And at that point I was like, I really want to be a part of something. I mean, the world was falling apart, so I was like, I want to be a part of something that has meaning. And I was in film school and I wasn't really vibing with a lot of the projects we were doing. It was about like aliens, and I'm like, I want to do something that actually resonates with me right now. And I ended up reaching out to Topaz, our founder, and lo and behold, I sent him an email, which he still talks about to this day, was extremely long. It was like 4 paragraphs long. I'm like, okay, were they meaty paragraphs? Sure. But did it resonate with you? Yes. And that's all that matters. But I ended up joining the team, and I originally came on with helping here and there with customer service, smaller projects we were doing. And now I am associate producer and helping stand up our production. So when we go to different places and casting the people that you see in the videos and helping out with our new projects. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing.
Now the lovely Ash.
So my name's Ashika. I'm not gonna give my full name, but it's just Ashika.
All right, I wish I had given my full name.
Your full name's on the thing, so that's on you. So yeah, I mean, I'm originally from India, so I've been in New York for like about 11 years now, and it's been a journey, but it's a love-hate relationship. Anyone from New York knows that. It's been like 3 years since I've been at the Skin Deep. I'm currently the head of design, but I started off as an assistant editor, and I've basically done a bit of like everything here. So it's been a journey. It's been an awesome journey. I came across the Skin Deep. So I was in documentary filmmaking. I was doing my master's in it, and one of my friends posted something about the Skin Deep. I've never heard of it, and then they were looking for an assistant editor, so I was like, okay, that looks like something I really want to do. So that's how I connected with Topaz. And as soon as he sent me all these videos, Topaz is our founder, he sent me all these videos. I was like, where has this been my whole life? Like what yeah, like I was just like, what? Okay, this is exactly what I needed. And just like Sydney was saying, I was like, I know my background is in advertising and art direction and design and all that stuff, and I have like a bunch of experience in it, but never like truly it's a blessing to like have a creative job, but when there's no meaning behind it, it feels less fulfilling. So that's kind of how I found my way to Skin Deep, and it just made sense because the reason why I went to documentary school was because there's such a need for people who look like me to tell stories about me and things like that. So it just just meshed. So here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, that's so powerful. It's so crazy. We've been talking a lot about, we constantly do. Julia and I are obviously very good friends outside of this podcast. That's part of why we started this. And we just can talk so much about the different paths that we go down and how unexpected things can come up and how sometimes the universe just has a greater plan than we can even imagine at some point. So you both seem so happy in your roles, which is so cool, because I think something, especially that people in their 20s, honestly at any age, but in their 20s navigate, is just finding real fulfillment within your job, and especially in a place that's so based on connection and vulnerability, which are two things that we value on a tremendous level. I'm sure just makes all the difference. So for anyone who doesn't know, can we dive into the mission behind Skin Deep and how did it all get started?
All right, well, I'll just share a little bit about how we define ourselves. We are a house of brands. We've expanded, so we have a ton of brands, but essentially we explore connection at the intersection of humanity, technology, and data. So we are always creating a space of exploration, and creating spaces for people to truly explore every part of their humanity. Another way I've always liked to look at it is that we like to illuminate humanity and contribute to human consciousness. And there's so many parts of what it means to be human, whether it's your relationships, love, sexuality, however you relate to the world. We want to be able to take up space in all of those areas and create a space for exploration of those things. But Ash knows a little bit more about how it was all came to be together with Topaz.
Yeah, so Topaz, our founder, he is a filmmaker, and he was looking to do a film back then, and he realized there was a 16-year gap between him and his youngest sibling, and just had this this realization that the way that they relate to dating is very different. And it's interesting when they sit down and have a conversation about it, how much comes out of it. So based on that, he kind of just wanted to create this documentary series that platforms people and how they connect, and how how it's no two relationships are the same in a way. So in order for everyone to learn from it, you have to document it, and down the road you see the true difference between generations and things like that. I mean, it's amazing the work that we do in the sense where taking, for example, COVID and the pandemic. Can you imagine 20 years from now, you're watching a conversation between a mom and a son about a pandemic that shut down the whole world? That to me, the fact that we can document that space in between, and it's not necessarily about the politics, but it's about the relationships and how that shifts. So he kind of saw something in that, and now he's built this basically a pioneer in communication and connection and listening. So yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah, it's so amazing and it's so beautiful, and I really encourage everyone to after listening to this interview, go over to their Instagram and watch some of the videos, because it is so beautiful, and the amount of diversity in the videos too, not just between color, race, but also age, gender. There is everyone from across the board, and it's just so beautiful to see two people sit down and really connect. And it's interesting, Ashika, that you just brought up the pandemic, because I wanted to ask you guys, there's so much of this creating connection in the digital age. We know social media, being able to connect digitally has changed how we connect, and then that's been even more altered due to the pandemic the past 2 years. So you guys witness a lot of people. How do you think these two things have really affected our ability to connect? What have you witnessed through the work that you do, how that's affected our connection to each other?
Yeah, I can take this. Sid, if you're cool with that. I mean, basically, I think, especially over COVID specifically, we saw a clear need for people to be able to connect, right? Communicate. I mean, yes, there is like, it's twofold in the sense where it's like there has been a huge disconnect in terms of like physical proximity, but then there is like the bright side of it is that people are willing to connect because they have no choice. So I think it was just like perfect timing for us in the sense where we were like, okay, it's time for us to go to Atlanta, it's time for us to go to LA and document these conversations in the middle of a pandemic, risk our lives, but it's worth it in the end. And Julie, I think we kind of see both of it, and obviously, like, humans find creative ways to connect, and they adapt in these as the world changes, and it's rapidly changing. So in that sense, like, the work that we do is important, and I think, for me at least, like the 3 years I've been here, I saw it the most during the pandemic because we grew really fast, and it is because of the need for connection, especially now. So yeah.
Yeah, and off of that same point about Ash saying that we're really good at adapting, humans are. You put humans in a situation, they will find a way to not only survive, but sometimes thrive. Like, we will find a way to adapt. And I feel like we've done that in this pandemic. You see that people are finally learning Zoom etiquette and learning how to like get off of mute when they need to, and wearing pants for the first time ever now. Like, we're finally learning how to adapt to being in this pandemic. And while it's great that we are adapting to this new normal, it also, sometimes we can forget what we left and the good parts of what we left, the parts that we're missing, the parts that we're lacking. And I feel like the Skin Deep comes in and is able to create space for that, and create experiences that can, in some ways, celebrate this new normal that we're in, and all the creative ways that Ash was talking about that we've adapted, but also bring back that element of human connection, and just truly exploring your humanity in a way that we don't necessarily have the ability to do right now in the pandemic. So that's really where I see us coming in. And during the pandemic, it was just heightened.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And you mentioned the aspect of lacking. I think we've grown, right? I can't generalize, I guess, to everyone, but I think that I know Julia and myself have had so many conversations about connection and vulnerability and the power behind really owning your truth and sharing that with others, and how it really gives others a space to say me too and relate or feel less alone. Like that's everything that our mission is based on here. So what skills or tools do you guys notice that we're lacking most when it comes to fully connecting with others?
Ooh. All right, I'll take this one. We were actually just talking about this earlier this week, about listening. And it's kind of feels a little trite to say, but we don't listen in our society, and we have all of these tools, social media being one of them. And there is a lot of discourse about, like, is social media tool if it's using us at a certain point, but it has been a tool for several years, and it's not a place where we necessarily listen. It's where we share our experiences, which is really beautiful, and great, but that ability to truly connect with someone by understanding and like listening to them hasn't been something that is, to us, seems to be present in society. And that's where we come in and try to be able to create that space. So the and space, it's literally two people sitting down across from each other, looking into their eyes. You can't essentially, it's not like a normal conversation where you can, go get coffee or, look somewhere else when they say something that's uncomfortable. You're sitting right in front of that person, and you have to receive, what they have just said. You ask them a question and you have to answer. That's what it is. And it creates this space where deep listening is flourishing. And I feel like that is something that it's a tool that needs to be utilized more, hasn't been, and we want to bring that to the forefront of a ton of conversations.
Yeah, it's so incredible to watch. And I think, like, you guys have hit the nail on the head of like creating that space, because with our phones in our hands, like, all the time, our attention span has just gotten so depleted. Like, our ability, and I notice it in myself all the time, our ability to pay attention and just to be with one thing has become so depleted, and it almost feels difficult a lot of the time when we're not having a conversation and also scrolling through Instagram or looking over here doing that. Like, I think in our own day-to-day lives, we rarely create the space to just sit down uninterrupted and talk and listen. And it's why I think it's so moving when you watch the videos, because it's almost shocking, because we just don't make the room to do it in our real lives. So I want to talk about that experience, since you guys get to see it all the time. You have people in the studio come to play the game, you document it. First of all, just if you want to quickly tell us a little bit about the different cards that you guys have for anybody that doesn't know. And then I'm curious, sort of like, what are some standout things that you notice when people come and play the game?
Yeah. So for one, the card game, we have like basically like 12 card games right now, and they're all based off of the documentary Right The End, which is one of our sub-brands, and it explores love and relationships. So we have everything from friends, strangers, family, kids, amusing, on racism, healing. Healing is one of our like best ones now, ironically, but it is, and it's great. It's a really good one. So yeah, and then we have like postcards and other things. But yeah, it's a great card game. I've played it so many times. So I'm also, yeah, I can advocate for it. But coming back to the space, I think for me at least, like the most shocking thing is like if let's say like if a pair of folks come in and they're doing this for the first time in terms of like ever playing, or even not knowing anything about the experience, like, oh, this is something, and like I want to figure it out. I think there's always this visceral reaction afterwards saying like, I can't, that felt like therapy almost, like that felt like something I've never done in my life, and all it is just sitting across from each other and having a conversation. And it's usually like super shocking to folks who haven't done it have never done it before. But like for people who come in and have played the card game, they still think it's like a completely different experience, because there's this whole aspect of being watched by the world. There's lights and cameras around you, and for us, like, it's really important for us to set up the space so it feels safe as soon as you walk in, like from the candles we put in the room, from the way we greet everybody. It's very important for us to keep that space as safe as possible. So when they come in and they experience that, I think that changes just the whole aspect of how you communicate with each other, the conversations, taking the time to just sit across from each other and stare at each other for 30 seconds. It's not that hard, but it creates like this reaction that is like honestly so beautiful for me too. Like every time I finish a production, I just feel so tired but so energized. Like it's like this perfect balance of the both. And it's because, yeah, like tired because I'm doing the work, but then energized because I'm filling up my I guess like what's the word, filling up my cup with like the thing that I've been missing for so long, is hearing people actually communicate with each other, you know. So it's like it's truly amazing. And Sid, I know you've been on it more now, so would love for you to add to it. But yeah, that's just it's great.
I mean, that was more eloquently said, like how I feel exactly. One of my favorite things is, well, recently I've been behind the camera. I've been on, I look at one of our participants, and it's a really interesting experience. We try to be as discreet as possible. So you'll see my hair if you're sitting in the chair, but I'm like right behind the camera. But you really get to see this interesting part of people, what is it, like taking down their walls or almost leveling with how much vulnerability they're going to express in the conversation. And I feel like we do that almost in every conversation you enter, whether it be a TST conversation or anything. There's like an agreement, like, okay, we're gonna talk like this, we're gonna reveal this much about ourselves. And when people actively sit down in the two chairs we have in our studio, I feel like it's an agreement that people make. It's like, we're going to be vulnerable. And the level to which that happens that honestly feels like it's determined when they're sitting in those chairs. But by the end of the conversation or around the 9th or 10th question, you can just feel it when people are like, I'm not holding back anymore. We're in this space. We might as well go all in. And that's one of the most beautiful things. Like you don't get to see that a lot. I mean, especially if you don't see in your own relationships, it's hard to see it anywhere else, but to be able to witness that every shoot and see just the different ways that people communicate, the different ways that people are able to be vulnerable, because that is something that it's not a one size fits all. So that's been one of my favorite. It's taught me so much. I mean, Ash can attest to, I remember every week we have on our like weekly call, we'll talk about like what we learned this week, what inspired us, what we are excited about for next week. And for the first several weeks, I think I consistently just talked about how much I was learning from every person that came and that we saw on set, because it is just this, I mean, just seeing humans be humans in general is amazing. But yeah.
Oh, I love that. And especially just embracing the humanity. You guys talked a lot about like owning your humanity and stuff like that, because I think so often everything is rooted in our thoughts, right? So I think so often we literally like blame ourselves or judge ourselves for certain thoughts that we have, even if it's something that we think should be different or what we think society thinks should be different, whatever. So to be able to share like these things that you might find to be insecure or something that you haven't shared with someone before, like it's just so powerful. And it literally, I feel like you guys can see somebody just opening, breaking down their walls, and the level of freedom and release and like all that stuff that can cause. And also just a quick side note, I absolutely love that your team meetings talk about what inspires you and stuff like that. Like what a beautiful company, your company culture sounds incredible.
It's great. It is great.
Gotta practice what you preach.
Yeah, seriously. So it's so crazy, because I'm certain that beyond you guys all feeling like safe in your own, community and workplace and all that stuff, that just probably really exudes to the people that, step into your space and feel that too. So I love that. And I feel like, so when you watch people actually play the game or you're playing yourself, do you find that there's like a level of hesitancy at first? Or do you guys feel a level of hesitancy, or do you feel like you've kind of really strengthened your own vulnerability muscle? Like, what does that look like?
I think it's like
Sorry, my internet's really off. Go ahead, Ash.
No, okay. You want to take it?
Okay, fine, I'll take it.
Yeah, take it.
So I'll speak for myself. One of the times that I felt a hesitancy in being as vulnerable as I could be was once again on our calls that we have of our team, and we were playing one of our decks, which is the On Racism deck, which is a fantastic deck that we have. But there was a twofold part of me feeling, once again, bargaining that vulnerability. Like, do I share this much about myself and, this like deep part of myself, how will it be received? And I feel like that comes from this almost like I think I read somewhere, like one of the only biological fears we have as humans is the fear of abandonment. And that comes from a whole thing of us being like centered towards survival and acceptance, whatever, but we seek love in relationships. Like that's one of the only things we seek. So the fear of abandonment is so strong, and being vulnerable puts that at risk. Like if I say something, what if everybody on the team thinks I'm this or doesn't want to talk to me or like there's I think that's at the root of why it's so hard to be able to be vulnerable sometimes. And I do feel like there, you go into it and there is some hesitancy, but as you bear yourself and you see the other person or other people that you're playing this game with also bear themselves, once again, it's that bargaining, being like, okay, look, we're gonna all go in. Like if I make a fool of myself and say something that might be a little incorrect at this time, or this is not, like we're doing it together, and it's allowing yourself to be able to get there. I think it and you're correct, it completely builds over time. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I go into a situation I'm completely comfortable being vulnerable, especially if it's a different person each time, because that's just the way it falls. You have to get your footing right with it. And I can get comfortable with knowing I'm going into a situation being vulnerable, but once I'm in there, it's its own experience.
Yeah. Ashika, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, The same, honestly. Like for me, I think I've seen my like growth as in terms of like the way I connect with folks and the way I communicate in itself, uh drastically changed since day one to now. And that's because I've chosen to be uncomfortable and have the conversations. And a huge part of what we do is embracing discomfort and just being able to like know that even though vulnerability and hesitancy will show up and like be there, like you have to take that step into discomfort because you're not going to learn otherwise. And just like everything else, it's practice. So I think like I've come a long way in terms of the way I connect with folks, and that's because I've been given the space and the opportunity to like be vulnerable. And just like Sydney was saying, I don't feel alone, you know, like we're not alone, like we do it as a team. So it feels really good in that sense. Yeah.
I love that. And I love what you said about discomfort, because it's something Julia and I just go back and forth on a lot, because obviously feeling uncomfortable is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think as humans, we really have a tendency to want to avoid that, to avoid the discomfort, to avoid the pain. And people choose different avenues, right? Whether it's avoidance of their own thoughts, avoidance of sharing with people, whether it's like numbing or, you know, self-medicating type of tools, whatever route you want to go down, like people, we really try and avoid discomfort because we're afraid of what it's going to feel like, or we're afraid of what somebody else might think, or how we could be rejected or abandoned, like you said. So I really think that leaning into discomfort has such a, I guess, a stigma, or at least it's not often as encouraged. But when we feel those feelings and are able to process them in our bodies, I think it just, one, makes it less scary. Then I think also builds trust within ourselves that we can navigate strong emotions like that. And I think it just kind of proves that we can do that in different areas of life. I know for myself, like, you almost don't even realize sometimes when I feel like you're avoiding certain situations or conversations or whatever, but really when you actually step into it, you feel so much more powerful after having experienced that. So anyways, I love that you guys acknowledge the discomfort that kind of can exist there, but see the benefit overall after actually leaning into it.
Yeah. I also love this idea of giving permission to be like, okay, we're making an agreement here that we're both going to do this thing. And it's just such an interesting, you know, way of thinking of it, of like, we're both going to show up and we're both going to do this thing and we're going to be vulnerable and we're agreeing to do that together, especially in a world, in the place we are in the world, where we're so like at odds with each other, so disconnected, so black or white, you know, like to get two people in a space that may come from either similar places or different places, and just say, we're gonna make an agreement for just this period of time right here. And you know, we hope they can carry it out further than that. But there is just something so important about creating, like you said earlier, creating that space to be safe to do that, because vulnerability, it's hard, like it's so hard sometimes. And I love how you see when you watch the videos, like you can see that uncomfortability at first when people sit down, they're fidgeting, they're like you see it in their bodies, and then you watch it change and it's just so beautiful. I'm curious if you could give any advice to like people in their 20s, because that's who's here with us, about vulnerability. What advice would you give them when it comes to giving themselves that permission to be vulnerable?
That's a great question. Wow.
Take your time.
I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind in like big red letters is like, you got to do it. I mean, for a long time, it was, I think that's why when I first came on board and I went through my whole binging of everything for so long, it was because I didn't really give myself that permission. And seeing other people do it, it was almost like a jealousy came over me. I'm like, how is this like, how are people having these relationships? How is this like? And then when I started working and seeing like the type of questions that people are asking, just the way that you're able to just reveal parts of yourself, I was like, it's so necessary. And now I've become that person in my family who is like, let's talk about it, let's do it. I have a twin sister, and we're the same person. So she still is like evading all problems in life. And I'm like, girl, just talk to him. I promise you it'll be fine. Like, and even if it's not fine, like at least you know upfront about what's happening. You got to be vulnerable. You got to just be open, like have the conversation. That's really what I would just say is there's no wrong time to start. There's no right time to start. Just do it, because there's so much that's waiting for you to unlock about your humanity and seeing other people's humanity when you're able to just be in that really vulnerable place.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, what I think we've learned and seen a lot within ourselves is the more vulnerable that we kind of force ourselves to be, and if we're able to find people in our circles that we feel really uplift us and that we find a safe space in, so many times I feel like I'm almost processing certain things through questions or conversations that we have for the first time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I was feeling that, or I didn't know I was thinking that. And I think in those ways it allows us to not only lead the way, lead by example, and show show vulnerability firsthand, but I think also it allows us to explore ourselves more deeply and really ultimately, I think, be able to craft a path that feels more aligned for us because we better understand our own internal world, and sometimes I think through the connection, we can be more drawn to, if the space feels comfortable enough to share these parts of us that maybe we haven't even explored, where I don't think everybody takes the time to, like, I don't know, journal or maybe go see a therapist or stuff like that. Like, I just think that this is a beautiful way to kind of go deeper. And yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, it's like, hey, if you're not journaling, if you don't want to see a therapist, watch some Skin Deep videos.
Yeah.
Right there. Free therapy for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's total therapy. And also just like kind of circling back to before, it really shows you that like despite people's differences, like we're all really the same deep down. And like we all have, we all face difficulties. We all just want to be seen. Like we just want to be seen. We just want to be accepted. We just want to be loved. Like no matter who you are or where you come from. It's that opposite of what you were talking about before, Sydney, of being abandoned. We all just want to be seen and loved for who we really are. And I think that when you watch people play the game, you really see that. It's so necessary. It just feels more necessary than ever.
Yeah, 100% agree, because like I think, I mean, like in my 20s, I've been the most seen the most polarization in terms of like growing into just seeing how different people can be and how much conflict and confrontation that brings about. And it's taking a question and asking the right question between those two folks, whoever they are, doesn't matter where they come from, and seeing how like that one question can create like a lesson about yourself, but also about the other person in a way that actually brings you closer together. Is like, it's like so simple when you think about it. It just feels like 1 + 1, but it's that simple. And I think this year, especially, like not this year, 2020 especially, that's where the need for connection came through the most, is because we felt the most polarized. Like everyone was disagreeing about something, and everyone was not, like you're saying, not being seen, not being heard, not being loved. And that's all we really wanted. And all it takes is asking the right question, one question, two questions, and you're good, like
it's crazy. It's like
it's crazy.
Like just like asking the right question. I mean, it like blows my, it feels so simple, but it's so revolutionary at the same time, which is like so crazy. I like literally have chills. Oh, I think incredible. We know that the Honest X card games just came out. They seem very exciting. They're designed to help people explore their sexuality. So tell us a little bit more about this deck and what made the team feel like this was like the next necessary deck to put out.
Yeah.
You want to go for it?
All right, I'll go for it. I also want to say it was designed by Osh, and if you see the box, it is beautiful. Purple and orange and no, I'm not just saying that, it's beautiful. Literally, we all gasped when we saw it on Zoom. But Honest X, just if anyone is curious to know what it is our safe and non-judgmental space to explore sexual expression. So we have the card game, which is really fun to play. Ash has her own experience with it. She'll tell you about it in a bit. But then we also have a podcast where people can come on and talk about their sexuality and about their sexual expression. There's an ability to be anonymous if that's how you would prefer to present. You can do it with a partner. You can do it with a stranger, which has been, I've actually been recording sessions this past week. So it's been great. It'll be released, I think in the new year. So that's really exciting on our radar. But in terms of how we got to this place of wanting to talk about sexuality and sexual expression, I mean, it was just the next step. Like we said, our brand TSD is about exploring every single facet of our humanity. So the and is about connection and about love and relationships. And this is about sexuality. Like is a huge part of our lives. And at least for me, I remember when this was announced that we would be going into this project, I was like, yeah, it makes sense that's probably the last thing that I haven't really been open and talk to people about. Like I said, I've gotten better at being able to express myself, like reading the questions and all these different things. I have these great conversations with people. And I was like, what is the one thing that I haven't quite tapped into yet? Oh yeah, it's sexuality, because it's so buried in taboos. And I am from the deep South and like a very Christian family. So like that conversation does not happen whatsoever. So at least for me, I remember being like, I'm excited to dive into this because, it's almost like, excuse me for my Marvel reference, but like Thanos and like the rings. And I'm like, we got love and relationships. We got this, we got that. Now we got to get sexuality on the stones. Like we got to talk about everything. We have to add every part of the human experience. TSD needs to dive into it all. So
what's the guy's name? I don't know. I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, I fully agree, Sid. And also just to add to it, like I think, and you mentioned it, it was like we have an opportunity, just like we did with the end in terms of relationships. We have an opportunity to shift the way people talk about sex, right? Because it is so buried. It's only in the bedroom, like it's only between your partner. It's only like, obviously everyone has different experiences. And just like I said, like I came from India with absolutely no, we're not talking about it. There's no way we're talking about it. And so our opportunity here is to shift that culture and make sure that people are talking about it in a way that you learn from each other. And like one of our taglines is explore yourselves together. And the whole point is to have conversations, and it's not about your relationship with the other person. It's about yourself and what you learn from it, right? And in terms of like your sexuality. So I think it's absolutely important, very necessary. And one of the most mind-blowing things that happened to me like last week was I was playing with my two guy friends who are like, we don't have conversations about like, yeah, maybe like in passing, but we spent 3 hours talking about sex, and we learned so much about ourselves, like, and each other. And it's honestly like so eye-opening in a sense where it's like, yeah, like Sid's saying, like you don't even think to go there. And it's just like we said earlier, all it takes is, ask the question, and you'll have these conversations that are super important. So yeah, I mean, it's an awesome game, and we've taken a different approach in the sense where there's a little bit more gameplay, because we wanted to introduce the idea of consent in a way that's more open and like conscientious of who's playing and stuff like that. So it is great. So, and what else can I say about it? Yeah, I think that's like, I could keep going, honestly. I could keep going.
It sounds amazing. It really is. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so we have a starter pack, and it comes with like base level questions, and then if you wanna buy additional ones. Like an example, on my favorite one, and I can't wait to play with my mom. If she watches this, she's gonna, but anyway, it's called Social Studies, and it's basically questions that you that tap into the way you were raised about sex, or like the way that culture influences your sex, or community influences not your sex, your sexuality. So that's one of my favorite ones. And like, so we have expansion packs like that tackle different things, but then there's a base level set of questions which are really like anyone can play. And then we have the full experience, so you can basically buy all of it together, or you can do like a starter pack. So it's like your pace, your time, but it's all good shit.
I love that all sounds seriously incredible. Like that, just the topics that you guys are diving into, and with all of the discomfort that we're afraid to embrace or step into, I think it is so helpful to have a guide that's literally prepared for you, because I think a lot of times beyond the fear and discomfort, I think we're afraid of asking the quote unquote wrong questions, or not asking it right, or like, I don't know, saying something incorrectly.
We don't even know like how to form our feelings into questions.
No question, exactly. So it's so powerful that you guys are doing this, expanding into so many topics that are beyond important to talk about, and it's clearly making such a difference in the world. So you guys have been so wonderful. I wish we could keep you for ever and ever, because we would, but to respect your time, you guys are incredible. Thank you for everything that you're doing, for all of the connection and vulnerability that you're bringing to the world, and really making it a better place through every single connection and every time that someone digs deeper. So
Shucks.
So for anyone that wants to find everything that your team has to offer, where can they get the game, watch the documentary, all that stuff?
Yeah. So our primary shop right now is shop.theskindeep.com, and then it's shop.honestex.com. So we have two different websites there. And then if you want to watch our YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/theskindeep. And then our Instagram is _skindeep. So yeah, those are our channels. Come and see us. Come and be a part of our community. We love you.
Totally.
I didn't miss anything, right, Sid? Oops, did I miss anything?
No, that was it.
Also, if you want to be part of the podcast, actually, you're welcome to join. Anyone, like you just have to email us at podcast@honestex.com, right, Sid?
Yes,
that's your world, girl.
So we would love to have you, love to help you be able to explore your sexual expression. And like I said, the anonymity, it's been a mouthful to say that word the last couple of weeks. But if you want to be anonymous, completely possible, we will make that happen. If not, then come as you are. But we would love to help you guys.
Oh, incredible. You ladies have been so amazing. We can't thank you enough for your time, your vulnerability, and everything that you do over at the Skin Deep. I hope everyone is running over to watch all the videos and get all the games. I'm absolutely going to get the Honest X games as soon as we hang up, because it sounds cool. But thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Roaring 20s podcast. Be sure to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and please subscribe. You're never alone. Our pride sticks together.
Tune in every Monday and Thursday for new episodes of Roaring 20s podcast.
You get to start your week with us and end your week with us. With love, Brenda and Julia.